Let's do it. Welcome to Books We Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Jason.
I'm Nicole.
And today is our first reading of The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. I cheated just now. I had to read it
You
off.
had to look. I do it every time. Yeah. So, before we get started, please make sure that this is the video you really intend to watch. We talk about this covered portion, which today we're talking about part 1 of the Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. We talk about this covered portion as if you have also already read that portion. So, spoilers abound. We talk about it all. So if you haven't read, stop the video unless you like spoilers. Get caught up on the reading and then join us again. We have lots of other things playlisted for you, tons of other books, so feel free to dig around in the playlist section and see if there's something else that you would like to read and follow along with. Please interact in the chat if you're here live and interact in the comment box if you're watching the replay. We love hearing your thoughts as you go through the book, and that's the whole point of a book club is to be able to learn from each other. So please participate that way. We are also on YouTube Music. It used to be Google Podcasts, and that's going away. We're on YouTube Music as a podcast. We are on Good Reads as a community at Books We Never Read. So you can join us those other ways.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
We're in two wares.
We'll be in your house if that's what you want.
And we're so happy to be there.
Yes.
What else do we need to talk about?
I have a couple of announcements.
Okay.
Number one, don't forget that we are doing a special episode next Saturday at 10 a.m. American Central Time. Wherever you are in the world, you can do the math. And that is to review the Netflix Three Body Problem show, which we have now watched one episode of, and we have things to say. So we hope you join us for that because we're really looking forward to it. In addition, I am doing some cleaning up of the YouTube channel, and so if you go back and look at old episodes, you'll probably notice that the titles are changing, but the thumbnail cards are going to stay the same. So hopefully, I think most people probably look at thumbnail cards anyway for a lot of information. So we're just trying to clean it up and make it a little more streamlined. So you may notice some changes like that over the course of the week. If you look at our stuff ever, which you might not. I might be the only one. So, I think that was it. You ready?
Ready.
All right.
What do you think about the book so far?
It's really great. I had told one of my wardens about this book. I was just like, hey man, we're reading this book. You should check it out. He told me he told me he used to read a lot of historical fiction, and lately he's been reading science fiction. And that dude finished this book in 24 hours. And then every time I walked past his office, he'd be like, where are you at? And I'm like, I'm chapter 1. It was really bad. So I'm happy to report, if you're watching, that I will be stopping by your office tomorrow morning, and we can have some conversations about the book. But it's I don't know what it's about yet. I don't know where we're going, and I don't really care. And one of the things I think is most interesting about this book is we went from a book last where you had a handful of main characters and everybody else was literally called Doug and treated like a nobody for most of the book until they kind of addressed that issue, to a book where everybody there's a huge cast of characters. Mm-hmm. It's huge. And we'll go back 50 years and tell the story of somebody's life. And no matter where the book is going, I guess that's kind of the point that I'm taking so far, is that everybody matters, mm-hmm. right? And to somebody, yeah. And this half cousin and all that, yeah. And
everyone's a Doug, and everyone has a story,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's nice to zoom in on the Dougs.
Yeah, it's just stories about everyday.
And really,
people.
In this book, the rest of the community, the other part of the community, the white part of the community, they're the Dougs.
They're the Dougs.
There's only one or two named, that we learn stories about.
So you're right about that. And the one white person that we really have gotten to know so far is Doc. Doc. I want to call him Doc Ock, but obviously that's not
Doc
correct.
Roberts.
Doc Roberts, yes. Who is the head of the KKK or in town or whatever, right? But so here's what I want to say about this, and y'all can jump me if I'm wrong. There's that whole chapter that kind of gets to like how he became, and the point of that chapter is that he matters too.
The point of that chapter is that his feeling of superiority is built on a lie.
I'm not disagreeing, and like he wants to save America and keep it the same and all that, right? But he doesn't matter more than anybody else. I'm not saying that. Mm-mm. And and I'm not saying that the things he cares about are more valid or anything like that, but they are the things he cares about. Some of the things he cares about are as valid. I think unfortunately, his way of taking care of his family and his people is by harming others, and I'm not here for that. I'm not saying that, but I'm glad that we get to zoom in on him because we see like how his family had that farm, right? And mm-hmm. and everything they had was like destroyed, and they lived in this like sludge pool, and mm-hmm. Like that America, that this society that is being built. And this is like a little too late to kind of be the end of the Gilded Age, but it really isn't at the same time. This is sort of the end of early American industrialization and just like what all that has and how much that has upended things, and I enjoyed that chapter.
One of the points there is that everyone has their own hardships. Nobody has this perfectly built life where everything is easy and goes as planned. Yeah. But it's about how do you present yourself and how do you handle that? Yeah. He is from a place of privilege where he can go through hardship and he can still become a doctor and be college educated mm-hmm. and be well off in the community and well respected and get away with violating a woman and then blaming a child for beating him up.
Yeah.
That's where he is.
Right.
Everyone else in this book has gone through hard things and mm-hmm. hardships mm-hmm. and has found beauty in life from that.
I buy
and
that
has,
too.
Found ways to... I mean, they still carry their scars and they still carry some damage and they still have... we see them have perceptions of others, some that are misguided and some that are, just quirks. We see that on both ends, but we don't see them doing the harm to others that he does.
Sure, yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that. Like, he's a bad dude, right?
I am restraining myself so well. I am so proud of myself. I came into the book club today with some self-talk, saying, Nicole, the things that you want to say about Doc Roberts are not appropriate for the audience that we have here.
You can say some of them.
I'm afraid if I let go a little, I will completely lose control. There are things that I want to say that would make some sailors blush.
Gotcha. I think he's a bad dude. I'm on board. But I also think that, like the part of the way to defeat his way of thinking is by helping him understand and get to know the people that he is dugging, right? Like the mm-hmm. people that he is like turning into these unwashed masses that are just worse than he is or whatever. But I think that this, if we're going to do that, the same needs to be true, is that we need to, because the things that he thinks about other people are the things that are true about him, right? Like, he's the problem.
Yeah.
And he's, and
yes.
he's the thing that is holding the people back. And so if we want to defeat his way of thinking by helping him understand others, the way to defeat his thinking is by helping ourselves to understand him so that we can help people like that too.
Yeah. And I wonder, so his way of thinking it's a poison, right? Like, in a lot of ways. It's this, I want to protect the country that I know and that was built for me, and mm-hmm. I want to protect the women, and I want to protect the children. And there are some people who aren't, white and Protestant, that we can let into the group, but I get to choose.
Right. Yeah.
I get to choose because they follow my rules.
Right.
So, like his obsession with Shona.
Mm-hmm.
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
She's a Jew, but she's
got to convert.
Beautiful. She can convert as long as she loves me.
Yeah.
As long as I can have her, mm-hmm. and I can control that.
Yeah.
So dangerous. Yeah. And that's exactly what Malachi, when he dipped out of town, that is exactly what he was talking about. America is too dirty, mm-hmm. and that is it. This facade that anyone can pull themselves up by their bootstraps, no matter what their circumstances are.
Mm-hmm.
You can pull yourself up and you can thrive in this society. Look, the Jews have their storefronts and they have their shops. But what are you really saying about them behind their back? That's the scum on the hill, and they serve the black community.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want from people?
Right.
Do you want them to be part of society and to contribute?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
So I'm
you want things under your own.
Yes,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Here we go. I'm a big believer in the American dream, and what I mean by that is I believe that it's a great ideal, and by ideal I mean like we haven't got there.
Yeah.
And like we never have.
Right.
And you know, some people say like, oh well, it was, and like some people make it right. Like I'm on board, right? There are rags to riches stories.
I mean, and you see Moshe, who is like, this is the American dream. Right. I have my stores, or I have my theaters, and I have a store that's losing money because my wife, you know.
But the American dream isn't just to do financially well enough for yourself. It is to be an American. One of the and to be equal, right? That is the point. And we have never gotten to that point. And my hope is that someday we will. And unfortunately, a lot of the themes that we're seeing in this book, we are seeing play out today, right? Which is probably why the book was written. But you know, what is it? When Shona, it's like early on in the book, and Shona and Moshe says, let's move down to town where the real Americans are. And Shona's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why are these people not real Americans? Right?
Yeah.
Because everything that they exemplify, right, hard work and doing what you got to do, like those are the things that are supposed to be what Americans are.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, I enjoy seeing these two perceptions. We see like the story being told from the black community, and we see the story being told from the Jewish community. Mm-hmm. So we also hear some perceptions that they have about themselves and each other. Mm-hmm. And that's really fun. Yeah. And it's very like enlightening. Back in the day, I was a multicultural perspectives teacher, and I did it through literature a lot. You know, we learned about different cultures in America through reading about them, and it helped the attempt was to avoid creating stereotypes while trying to teach about culture, which is very hard.
Yeah.
Because especially with kids, when you show them one thing, they're like, oh, well, all Chinese people have dragons, you know, or like whatever,
right,
you know, they can't understand that that other people are just people, and they are just as diverse and, you know, different.
Well, part of the problem is that a culture is meant to be a stereotype, right? It's meant to help you recognize, oh, this person isn't like me, even though, like, obviously they're not.
Right, yeah. And so, but this book shows, you know, just the variety of Jewish populations in America. Yeah. And how, from the outside looking in, you see, like, oh, yeah, that's just the Jewish population. But when you're inside of it, they are all so different, and they have such funny things to say about each other as well.
Yeah, they're all going after the
Polish, the Poles and
the Romanians,
and the ones born here who have a completely different, just a completely different foundation. Yeah. You know, like Shona is not afraid to talk back to the police. She is not afraid to stir up an argument. She's not afraid to read from the Torah, you know, and to bend some of these rules that the rest of them hold pretty fast to. Yeah. And they let her. Because it's Shona, and she's an American-born Jew, you know, and it's different for her or whatever. And so that's really cool. And so this would definitely be a book that we're only in part 1, so I don't know. But so far, this would be a great book to incorporate in a multicultural perspectives class. I mean, it's just, you're getting to see so much of this time in American history and different cultures in this one community. And I really love that. And I love that between the theaters and the Heaven and Earth grocery store, you do have a hub here of the joining of different cultures with the theater and the communication aspect of it at the Heaven and Earth grocery store. That is a Grand Central Station of communication for these communities. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. You know, there was there's a part where Malachi asks Moshe, and he's like, why is Nate your friend? Because you pay him? You know, and so even though I agree, like, there's this mixing of cultures, there's still this difference there, right? And they kind of get into this conversation about, well, American men don't talk to each other outside of work, and so like Nate and I work alongside each other, but I don't ever ask him about his wife. I don't ever ask him anything else. And I think I feel that, like, I think that's probably partially true, especially at this time. But you know, just kind of highlighting the fact that, like, even though they have to like live and work together, and they're almost seen as equals by like the white community, they also still see themselves separately. You know?
Yeah. There was a quote in that conversation between Malachi and Moshe.
Is that his name? I don't know how to say that name. I didn't listen.
I don't remember if it's Moshe or I think it's Moshe.
Moshe.
Light is only possible through dialogue between cultures, not the rejection of one or the other.
Yeah.
And that comment, well, first of all, I mean, like, just breathe in that line, you know, and just hold on to that, because that's a good one. But that reminded me towards the end of our reading, especially in The Robin and the Sparrow, Shona keeps referring to that light within Bernice. It's a light and a beautiful lamp that's not lit. It's this potential, this capacity. And there was light there between them, and it got shut off. And it kind of makes my brain go through some somersaults thinking about, you know, what happened at that point in time when that teacher ripped out her dress seam and Bernice blamed Shona for it. Shona did the exact same thing, and it didn't get ripped out. You know, this crack in the foundation of their friendship that was driven in by someone else's feelings or whatever.
Or whatever is probably more accurate. We'll put out an adult version of this episode. It's just Nicole screaming.
My brain's just really working on, you know, like, what happened between them, how racial tensions in this country drove apart these two girls that loved each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. That scene where the teacher tore it out for Bernice but not for Shona is unfortunately, like, they were equal in each other's eyes until Bernice realized that, like, they were never going to be allowed to be, and this was, and it wasn't their fault as kids, you know. It was put there by other people, and that's the experience of, like, everybody in this story, you know. But you used the word potential earlier, and that's the idea. You know, America is supposed to be, the American dream is not about money; it's about potential. You know, and so, like, in that, I think about Nate, who's like the best bricklayer they knew of, and, you know, what if he had been able to go to school, and, like, what could he have built? But just because he was the wrong color, we're not gonna, you know, not only are you robbing him of that, but you're robbing the greater society, you're robbing the world of all these things, you know. Was that in this book? I feel like there was something, it might have been actually in the last book, but you know, if somebody had picked up, like, an instrument, they might have been an amazing musician, but they never had the chance. I feel like that was the last book, but, you know.
Yeah, I don't remember. And that takes me back to Doc Roberts and his goal of, you know, bringing America back to the America that he knew, or whatever. I just have so much anger, and it just keeps, like, erasing all the great things that I wanted to say. But about that, like, that potential and that capacity, he won't go to the Jewish shoemaker anymore, because that Jewish shoemaker is too proud. So he spends more money for a less quality shoe. Who are you hurting by harboring so much prejudice and racism and hatred? You're hurting yourself because you can't get a good shoe now, and you're hurting your own community. and
But he doesn't see it as his community, right?
but it
But
is
it
his
is.
community.
Yeah, sure, right?
You know, and if we could just step out of our own preconceived notions, and I am saying this for everyone, because we all have these notions about each other, and we even see that here. We see them having these ideas about each other that aren't necessarily true or fair. But if we can step outside of those things just for a minute and see what good could come if I just reach my hand out and join forces with instead of create separation from.
Yeah.
That's where capacity and potential can be met.
Yeah.
And we can see that.
Right.
God, if Doc Roberts and the shoemaker would have just shaken hands,
Yeah. Sure.
that business could have exploded a million times more. Doc Roberts could have all of this very positive access into this community. He could actually help people.
Yeah. And not be their
grow
boogeyman.
his business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not be the boogeyman. God, it really riles me up. I'm so sorry.
Well, and this reminds me of, I think it was Mountain in the Sea, where we talked about like compassion and just being able to like understand, and that was about understanding octopi, but let's a little bit like, you know, the African American and Jewish communities in this book are the octopi, right? Like that is what's going on here. And it's these people who think of themselves as the pinnacle of civilization that can't understand it. And talking about that, talking about all these white folks thinking of themselves as the best. There's that hilarious scene where Moshe talks about how he books some shows for them, and they have this most pathetic music, and it's like really boring. And I really
just like revival,
yeah,
backcountry revival music.
Last night we listened to Mickey Katz just to see what it was like.
What a clarinetist!
It was really wild. Yeah,
he was really talented.
Yeah, crazy.
What a character, though. Okay, one more thing on the like perceptions of cultures, just a note that I had written down. You know, the black community kind of looks at the Jews and is like, well, at least they could pass, right? Like they can pass for white if they play the game, you know. But from like Malachi's point of view, he says like the benefit that the black community has, at least they know who they are.
Yes.
Well,
that's
just such a, it just rips my heart out.
Well, it's interesting whenever they talk about like all the people they don't want, because there's the white community, right? There's the black community, there's the Jewish community, and then there's all these other undesirables. Mormons and Mennonites and Irish and Italians and all these
And
other
the Greeks.
all these things that like today, because people have been in America for long enough and like nobody really understands, like you don't know where you're from, and so you just kind of, some people just kind of like failed upwards, right? Like they get to be white now because you don't speak Greek anymore, or you know whatever,
right?
And because you can pass,
right? Yeah.
But at that time, you didn't count.
Well, I mean, we even saw that back in slavery, like when we were importing slaves. If you were Irish and you were imported as a slave, I mean, eventually you just kind of blend in, right? And so you just pay off your indentured servitude, and then you are out into the world, and you were white, you know. But then if you were brought in as a black slave, there was no getting rid of the visual indication there, and it's just. It's terrible. It's just so stupid. But what I do love in this book,
Tell me what you love.
just Shona.
For sure.
I love her and her little like her little socialist readings, her little communist readings, and the fact that she'll read from the Torah and she doesn't care that the women aren't supposed to be reading from it,
and she'll write the paper about Doc Roberts' marketing and the
whole
thing. You know, it's not clear to me that she really understands like what a big deal she was to Dr. Roberts.
Right.
Right there at the end of the reading when he beats her up, she faints and he gropes her. I'm not sure he beats her up, but at that scene, because we're seeing it through the eyes of Dodo, we may not be like she may now realize, but definitely before that, I don't think she understood.
Yeah.
But
she did have fear in her eyes when she saw him.
Sure, but she probably knew he was coming. I mean, he's the clan leader, right? Like you don't want him showing up when you're hiding kids in the basement or whatever,
right?
but I mean, I kind of try to imagine like if here's this beauty that he wanted to be his, and now she's like outing him in the newspaper, and like what an absolute insult that must be in his own head,
Right.
because she has no idea.
Right.
But she's just fantastic and fearless, and
Mm-hmm.
represents. I mean, we're still early on, but she represents the early parts of a generation of women who aren't afraid to do that sort of thing. And yeah,
I love. There was a sentence that I highlighted where she didn't mean to love Dodo so much, you
Yeah.
know, but he was just so easy to love, and he became for just a few months the child that she
Yeah.
could never have, and I love the way that the narrator described it, that he did thrive with this attention and this love, and he loved his aunt and uncle very much too, and he loved all of them, and he thrived in lots of ways under all of them, but he was becoming resentful of his imprisonment.
Yeah.
And I just thought that this book just really manages to like show you a full 360 view of things, right? Like things aren't just good and things aren't just bad.
Yeah. Can we talk about how like weird and hateful it is that the state is trying to come and like take him and put him in this school? Because they'll care enough about some, deaf African American kid enough to take him away, but they won't care enough to like give anybody sewage, right? Like how it's just so incredibly gross. And I'm a say it, but we're still doing that same thing here now, right? We care enough about people to break up families and to punish them, but we don't care enough to try to honestly prevent that and to benefit people. That's all I have to say about that.
It's great when you read books about our history and it just punches you in the gut about how much work we have to do. We just have not made it far enough.
Yeah.
Whew. Another thing that I kind of thought of with Bernice and Shona's relationship, their childhood, is just like that trauma of growing up. You grow up with these friends, and at some point you kind of split apart. And when you're grown, and I don't know if other people do this, I'm sure, because I'm not very different from most people, but like I think back on some friends that I had growing up, and I see where they are, and in good ways and in maybe sad ways, both, for different people. And I wonder, like, how did we end up with such varied adulthoods when we came from the same neighborhood or the same little school? We had the same teachers, and all these things that kind of built who we were the same, and we became such different people.
Well, there are one or two events in life that have an outsized impact compared to the other millions of events that happen in our lives, and they change those trajectories.
It's just so interesting.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
Like you could have been anything.
Yeah.
And most of anything is not good. So the fact that any of us are doing okay is pretty awesome.
Yeah. A lot of the narration in this book really reminds me of To Kill a Mockingbird. Just the way that they will stop the story to tell you about this family 3 generations ago, and what happened then that affects who this person is now.
Yeah.
This does it a lot better than To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, those little side notes in To Kill a Mockingbird, you're just like, why did I learn about this? Like, it's harder to understand how it's connected.
I think that's a Southern narration style.
Yes.
And I don't know if you're watching, but I have a friend who does this. Like very seriously does this. You'll be telling a story, and then all of a sudden we're talking about something. We're learning about grandmas, right?
Yeah.
and then it's back to the story. And I think that's appropriate given how half of the people that we are following in this story, see the South as home, and because this is their story, it's an appropriate style to do it. But yeah, I love it. It's because it matters to them, right? Like if you want to understand Nicole, you need to understand this other stuff too.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time on this show talking about whether or not we are like just the sum of our past.
Yeah.
And we spend a
But
lot.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's what books are for. Make you think about these things.
Yeah.
Peggy points out that, like when we're kids and we're growing up all together, like teachers do not treat all the kids the same.
Yeah.
And we're
That's
not
true.
getting the same words and we're not getting the same encouragement. And that is absolutely true. And we saw that with Bernice and Shona as well.
Yeah.
Literally same project, different treatment.
Yeah.
And we do see that. And it's like pebbles in a backpack, right? Like the kid that gets the hate or the kid that gets the praise or whatever. It's one little thing at a time. But when you're just picking up lots of these small pebbles of discrimination and slights and maybe not like outright racism or hatred, but these little pebbles of things, it gets pretty heavy after a while, and that light will burn out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
Death by a Thousand Cuts.
Bernice. I want to hear Bernice sing before the end of this book. I care about it. I need to see her light back up.
Let's flip back to Malachi for a second.
Let's do it because I got some questions.
Okay. So Malachi, he is obviously the older Jewish guy that we meet at the beginning of the book.
Malachi is the Jew in chapter 1.
Okay, that's definitely him.
It calls him by name.
Okay, gotcha.
I had to go back and read it because I was like, who is that?
Yeah, no, that's Malachi.
It is Malachi.
So even though we are following all these other characters as our main characters, he is sort of the thread, I feel like, that is going to pull us through.
At some point, he's coming back.
Yeah, at some point he's going to come back.
Wasn't he living in the Heaven and Earth grocery store apartment?
Oh, maybe so. I don't know.
I do believe that is where we find him in the hurricane.
But he's an interesting character. I love. He's like so devout, but like in the weirdest ways. Like he reads from these books that you're only supposed to read on holidays, but he uses them all the time, and he takes it all very seriously. The whole thing where he first meets Moshe and like sticks his foot in the door, it's all very like Who's on Third style, right? Like, just tell the man that you're the guy that was here for Mickey Katz 20 years ago. But it's the whole like, who are you, sir? I will push you in the mud, sir. Right? The whole, it's just bizarre.
He's such a character.
Back and forth, yeah. And I really, that scene was a lot, but I enjoy Malachi as a character. Now, the interesting thing about him, and kind of the mystery to me, is whenever he leaves town after the concert, he sees there's a pop and black smoke on the hill. Mm-hmm. Is that a gunshot? Like, is that where this dead body comes from? Or is the dead body in our future as far as the story goes? I don't know.
I was wondering was that more than a gunshot? Was that like a bombing? Like a dynamite type thing?
What if that was the stove blowing up that took out Dodo's eyes?
Oh.
I mean, I'd never thought that before, but it could be.
Could have been.
I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever find out. But,
I don't know. And, the question... Oh, yeah, Peggy's saying maybe that was when the stove exploded. Who is the dead body in the well?
Yeah.
Oh, please let it be Doc Roberts.
I really thought it was going to be Doc Roberts. I was like, oh, we've already figured it out. But, yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
No, I hope he suffered.
So yeah, all that is pretty interesting to me. And so then there's this other thing going on with Malachi. What's up with his secret wife?
Yeah.
I think I have a theory. And I don't think he's married to his secret wife.
Yeah.
But I think he wants to be. I think it's Shona. There's something weird about his relationship with Shona. He brings her bread every day to heal her, but he refuses to see her.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's something weird going on there. That's just my feelings. I have no evidence for this.
Yeah, Malachi is not the killer though because he gave the mezuzah back.
Yeah. It also could not be a murder. Like it could not, right? Did they find any signs of trauma?
They're treating it as a murder investigation.
Yeah. Dead body in a well. Anything could have happened.
This is such small town stuff.
Yeah.
The small town I'm from has a dead body in the well situation too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just... It's just so much small town stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to him resurfacing and find out what goes on.
I'm also wondering who's narrating Chapter 1, Hurricane. It sounds like Paper to me.
Okay. Could be.
Because it's someone from the Black community narrating this about the last remaining Jew in the community.
Okay.
And she ends it with Mazel Tov. I think that's what.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of sassy.
So there's some sass and like some humor and some like, that man was a devil and I refuse to say his name, and so it's very like reporting on this event. So I wonder if it's Paper. She's so
and like
interesting
Paper can't read the whole she's holding the hymnal upside down and stuff.
Yeah,
really
but she's smart as a whip. Yeah. She knows all the information. Small town stuff. Dead body is dead body in the well situation. Yeah, I think it's Addie.
It could be.
Wait, the body?
No, I think she's saying the narrator.
The narrator. That would make sense because. Yeah. Addie's got stuff to say. Out. Interesting. Another thing I noted about the narration style. So in a lot of ancient texts and like ancient epics and things like that, genealogies and catalogs are a very like defining feature of the narration style. So think about like the Torah, the first 4 books of the Bible. You've got Numbers and Deuteronomy, and there's lots of catalogs of what was packed on the boat, or like so and so begat so and so begat so and so, and we get a lot of that here, especially in the chapters that are like Shona describing the things that Dodo collected in his room. These descriptions of all these things, or the things that people like Jewish immigrants carried with them over. They knew exactly what they had on their body. They had their spatula. They had when Malachi is busting out all his kitchen equipment, listing every single thing that he pulled out of his vest. That's a catalog. And so I think it's interesting that on these like Jewish narrated chapters, we tend to get this element that you see in the Torah of those catalogs.
So during this time, probably not for, I don't know about for like Black and Jewish families, but at this time, between like the 1880s and 1820s, you could either take a photo or get a picture drawn of your house and like you and your wife, and you would send it in to these like county registry catalogs and pay them like $5, and they'd put it in there, and they'd release these catalogs that would say like, here's everybody who lives in the county. And that was like a whole thing that people, there was no phone books, right? But they'd be like, Mr. and Mrs. Shaw live over here. They have 20 acres, and here's a picture of them, and they're, and here's their families and all that. And there was like a little blurb about it. But that was like it's weird, but like we have Abraham Lincoln's from Springfield, Illinois.
Oh, wow.
And what's really cool about these things too, just kind of talk about like inequality and where the world is at, even though his is from the 1880s, but same idea here. Actually before, because he was dead by the 1880s. But it's like his house is kind of nice, and his neighbor's is like a dump, and the guy next to it is like a mansion, and then the next one is a dump, and it kind of shows you where the world was at this in this sort of like 50-year period.
Very interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, people love catalogs. That's not a new thing. That's you're right. It's old.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just, by the way, so much chat that like I'm gonna have to go back and watch our video on mute because I don't want to hear myself. But I want to read all the chat and get caught up.
I saw Josh popped in for a second and said he hadn't finished reading, but he'll come back next week.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you said hey, Josh. Good luck with school. I think that's what he said. He had some schoolwork you need to get caught up on. Let's see. Look, I had so much. I had half a page on Doc Roberts and just how he is the epitome of so much of what's wrong in our country. Anyways. But yeah, so what a great book so far. Mm-hmm. Loving it. There's so much voice and so much like character and details,
like life.
And yeah. I like it a lot.
I really enjoy, and there's no hero here, right? There's just maybe Shona, right? Like maybe she's a hero, but it's a story about like everyday lives, and nobody is going on this great adventure. Maybe Malachi is. We don't know what he's doing.
That's what Malachi said.
Yeah, he was like slaying dragons and stuff. I don't know, but there's no. It's a story about life, and that's one of my favorite things. I love just talking to people and just hearing about like what they do, you know, and I think that's really cool, and that's how you get to know somebody, you know. That's how you get to know a community.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Look at Peggy's comment.
Oh, what?
It says about Dr. Roberts, he was, after all, a good Christian.
I will not acknowledge it.
The history is full of many of those.
The story about Ed Boll, Earl Roberts's ancestor, who came over not on the Mayflower but on the Peanut.
On the Peanut, yeah.
Actually died by choking on
Yeah.
a bell pork bun. I laughed so hard. Unfortunately, when that char siu bao pork bun slid down his windpipe.
Yep.
Just, I mean, that's the way to go.
Okay.
On a pork bun? Yeah. But anyways, I was laughing so hard at that. And I don't even remember what I was going to say about it, other than the fact that it made me laugh. But that is kind of a cool thing about America, is to a large extent we do create our own identities. You know, so many people don't know from whence they came. Right. It's just all mixed up, and it's
that should be the ideal. Mm-hmm. But whenever but there's so much wrapped up in identity, right? Mm-hmm. And so for some people they don't get that luxury. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's also, you know, that conversation I think was also talking about how all these immigrants to America had this experience of like going through Ellis Island. Mm-hmm. I think that's really interesting, and that's something that's just not true anymore.
Right.
But
well, it really wasn't true then. There was Ellis Island, and there was another one.
Yeah, but like so many, especially like if you were in that part of the country.
Right.
A lot of people showed up at Ellis Island. Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
But I just think that's kind of interesting, and how that sort of there are certain at this time for people of certain colors and certain cultures or whatever you when you showed up in America, you had these same experiences, which forged a shared bond, whether you wanted it or not.
Right.
And I'm not saying it was an overpowering bond, because you still hated the Polish and the Romanians or whatever.
Right.
But you still had this thing that was similar. You know.
And, you know, what an opportunity that could have been for people to bond together and find a common, you know, that they all went through that. Oh man, most of my highlights are me just raging at Doc Roberts. I can't spend any more anger on that anymore. I'm done with it.
I highlighted something. I don't remember what it was.
Oh, okay. So I did highlight Dodo, what he experienced. So when Shona went through her seizure and he was hidden in the basement trapdoor, first of all, okay, our author is just incredibly talented at switching up narration styles and really getting inside of the person who he's narrating point of view from. Mm-hmm. So to give Dodo's full sensory experience of Shona falling, he can't hear, but he felt it in every possible way. Yeah. I mean, he might as well have heard it.
Right.
You know, as Miss Shona fell, he thought he heard the sound of his own heart cracking, as if there was a sound to it at all, breaking off deep inside, for part of him knew he would never see her the same again, if ever. Going, gone, just like his mother, just like everything. Dodo doesn't die when he falls off the roof like that.
We assume he doesn't, because
he
at some point later on he tells Addie something. There was a comment like 2 or 3 pages before he jumps off the roof, that later on he would say something.
In chapter 1, Hurricanes indicates that Dodo did eventually, I think, get sent off to the school or something like that. So this doesn't kill him. Bao buns are delicious, but warning noted. What else y'all got?
I think we've hit all the things I want to talk about. The notes I had, we actually already discussed.
God, we've been going for 45 minutes. 35 of that was at least me raging at Doc Roberts.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll do it again next week.
Oh, God, what a coward. Just running and getting the cops because a little boy beat him up after he groped a defenseless woman.
It made me happy when it says that Dodo, when he finally, when he hits Doc Roberts, and he's like, he was softer than I expected. Because I think about all these people who are like big talk and hide behind their status and their wealth or
their color,
their anything like that, and they're like, I get it. You've got the power, right? Like in this society, in this town, you have the power.
You hold the money.
But if the people decided you didn't, you aren't enough to handle it. And I know a lot of people, not like racist people, but I know a lot of people who are big talk, and you couldn't make it half a mile, right? Like, you know, and I think about things like that, you know, like, could you take care of yourself? You know, and a hard life has hardened these people. They're strong people, and you are not. And, you know, this hurricane comes and wipes things out, and what if you have to be on your own? Like, no one's going to feed you. You don't know how to take care of yourself.
Yeah. On the positive, though, what we're seeing is compassion, concern, love. These are the things that power people and make good things happen in the world.
Yeah.
People are, regardless of like the conflicting feelings that all communities have toward Shona, the compassion and attention that Addie has for Shona, that Malachi and his gross bread has for Shona, you know, all these energies and hopes and concerns pulled her through, right? Like whatever it was, whatever it was, pulled her through. The fact that Moshe, you know, just stayed so devoted to sleeping by her side and you know, reading her Torah for her when she couldn't do it. And
this reminds me of Trust of the Emerald Sea, when they say if you want people to do something great, you need to give them someone to care about and not something.
Yeah. Bernice, after 20 years of not speaking to Shona, opens the door and says, "What's wrong?" And without any explanation, sneak him through my backyard. We'll protect the boy. I mean, people just, and they know what's at stake if they're caught lying to the federal government or the state government. They know. They know that there's no good outcome if they get caught. But they're willing to try to protect those who can't necessarily protect themselves. Like Dodo. I hate that his name is Dodo.
It's a good name.
I like Moshe. What kind of name is that for a child? The people who don't like Shona are the ones who are choosing hate and retaliation. She fights back. Yeah.
And Shelby asked, what are the names, the part names? Gone, gotten. I don't know the third part name. I could look it up real quick.
Like love, lost, or lost. Well, hang on. I'll tell you. Gone, gotten, the last love. Well, so what was gone in part one?
Malachi.
Malachi was gone.
I mean, ish.
Dodo might be gone.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. That'll be something to think about after we finish.
Yeah. Oh, and there's an epilogue, the call out. I don't think I knew that. Oh, I don't see that. Okay. We'll see. Yeah, Dodo is.
That's kind of what I'm feeling too.
Yeah. Man, this is just good for 100 reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, it fires you up and it makes you laugh and it makes you cry, and it also helps you just understand the lives of regular people. It opens your eyes up a little bit more to the world around you and the community.
Yeah. And we talk about, so like earlier you said this today, just now on the show. You said, God, I can't remember what we were talking about. But you said I'm pretty average, so I assume that the things that I'm experiencing are like what other people experience, and that is true to an extent, right? And because it is true to an extent, we think it must be true, but it is not. It is to an extent,
Right.
And so there are kids, there are kids who have grown up and we had average childhoods, right?
Right.
And so we think most people must have had childhood like ours, and there are lots of people who did, but there are a lot of people who don't. And it takes things like this to remind us that there's a whole lot of people out there, that aren't like us. Because I'm guilty of that too,
Yeah. And I didn't.
And we can all. And I don't think you meant anything.
Yeah, I didn't mean it in any way other than I don't think that I'm special because I think about my past and where my future could have been.
Sure. Well, and
that's all.
I don't think there's. I mean, there's nothing to it, right? Like it's true, and the only thing you can judge other people's experiences by are your own.
Right.
Until you can be shown what it is like to experience those things, and that's what these books are good for, because it can take you out of sort of your worldview. And so we were talking about, America should be a place where you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and it is for some people.
If you didn't have the boots.
Well, and so then you think, well, because I did it, everyone must be able to do it, and that's not true.
Right.
I mean, like, maybe it's true, but like the effort that is required to do so is 1,000 times. I'm like, whatever, but it is not a feasible goal in the same way. Some people start halfway up the mountain, and some people are at the bottom.
JFK has a famous line that I'm going to totally botch it up. And I'm pretty sure it's JFK, and oh my gosh, I'm sorry if I have the wrong person. But when they were talking about implementing affirmative action, one of his justifications behind it was, you can't hold a people back for 200 years and then put everyone on the starting line and assume that they're all they can run at the same pace.
Sure.
That is just not reasonable.
Right. Yeah.
But so back in the day, the like first generation Nintendo Wii had this little like kind of game on it, but it wasn't really a game, but it was just like survey questions. And you would answer your poll question for the week, and there would be like a more local poll question and then a more like worldwide poll question. And then it would show you how your response lines up in the average response. And I was younger at that time, and of course everything's all about me, and this is my world, and you're all just living in it, right? I thought that I would be so unique and that I would always be in the like tiniest percentile of responses because I think so differently than everyone else. I was always in the average response range, like always. And that's what I was kind of talking about there, that like I don't have any reason to believe that I think of things any differently than other people do. Like ain't nothing special going on. I mean, it's special, but it ain't special. Like we think we're so unique.
Well, people
is what
want
I
to be
mean.
special, right?
Yeah, we think we're unique, and we're just really.
Well, I talk about the hero's journey all the time, and we are our own hero, and so you must. And everybody else is a Doug, right?
Right.
The person you have the most information about is yourself.
I'm totally a Doug. Just the Dougiest Doug. It's fine. Living this Doug life.
Doug. Okay. Peggy keeps talking about shirts, right? Can we make a shirt that says Doug Life? Can we do that? I think that'd be really hilarious. I'm gonna email Brandon Sanderson and ask him if he's cool. Like, can I get some art related to this book, and can I make a shirt that says Doug Life? Or could you do it? I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Mr. Sanderson. Please, sir.
I was a Doug all week in Italy.
I need a Doug Life shirt.
Oh man. Yeah, this is good. I wasn't sure if I'd have anything to say in today's episode. I did. I had plenty. All right, guys.
Yeah. We've gone for an hour.
I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. People stuck around for it. The fact that anybody wants to hang out for an hour on a Sunday morning or afternoon or whatever it is for you and listen to us yell about Dr. Roberts is mildly entertaining to me. So
You know, I always have a song that gets stuck in my head, like based on the book that we're reading.
Okay.
There is I guess it's a Beatles song, right? Dr. Roberts.
I don't know the Beatles.
Yeah, that's been in my head. I think he was a bad guy too. The Dr. Roberts and the Beatles song.
Interesting.
Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Again, remember that if you want to join us, if you have time to both read and watch a TV show, we will be meeting at this time, but on a Saturday. Next Saturday.
Ooh, we got some watching to do.
For Three Body Problem. We have some watching to do. They're long episodes. They're about an hour apiece.
It's really good, though.
It's interesting. I will reserve my judgments till the end. And then we will be back for week 2 of this book, which is part 2 of this book, next Sunday, which is Easter Sunday. So if you can't make it, we get it.
Yeah,
But,
just catch us on the
we got things to do.
replay and watch all of it. Yeah, we're watching the
all
whole
of it.
thing.
Yeah.
It's a big...
It's not that many episodes. It's like 8 episodes.
Right.
And you don't have to join us live. Watch it at your own speed, catch up later.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Well, and, you know, some of you have already read it, so you already know. We won't be spoiling,
you
really.
don't know.
That's true.
It's different.
It is different. But
All right.
anyways, sorry.
Let's get out of here.
Okay, we'll see you maybe next Saturday. Definitely next Sunday. Or on the replay. Or whatever.
We hope to see you again.
Happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.